We just wrapped up our biggest event ever. Powerhouse Women 2019 was absolutely one for the record books. And today I'm breaking down all of the magic that we experienced. Well, at least I'm going to try to, because I'm kind of still at a loss for words. If you were there with us, you know that this was so much more than just another event. What we are creating together is a movement. And if you weren't able to be in the room, I'm just going to fill you in on what you missed because, sister, you are absolutely part of this movement too. And girls, we've got some work to do. So let's dive in. Oh my goodness, I am still at a loss for words to describe this past weekend. We had over 300 women in the room at Powerhouse Women 2019, and it was, even though I knew the numbers of who was coming, to see those 300 chairs set up was a little bit of a heart-stopping moment for me. Not the nerves thinking about, oh my goodness, I have to speak in front of all those people, but I think it just was such a humbling experience to realize that all of this, and if you watched it on social media or if you were there, you know what I mean. It was a pretty epic day, and it all started as an idea. Much like the ideas that are probably keeping you up at night right now, or the ideas that are making you wonder if you really have what it takes. And since I'm at a loss for words, I asked our community, I posted on our Instagram story this morning asking people, I said, help, how do you describe what just happened? How can you describe your experience of Powerhouse Women 2019 in just one sentence or a few words? And here are some of the responses. Oh my goodness, I promise not to cry. Someone said, Jennifer Lawrence said, empowering connection of genuine, inspiring, and motivated women. So moved. Amen, sister. Hand tap for you. If you were there, you know what that means. I'm just going to leave that as our little inside joke. Gosh, what else did you girls say? Powerhouse Women 2019 was uplifting, inspiring, moving, and transformational. I loved this one. It was an emotional roller coaster. Amen, sister. I laughed, ugly cried, and learned so much. And our favorite, Manicured Meatheads, our soul sister, Mary, said, it's no longer just an event, it's a full movement. And I couldn't agree more. It was something unlike anything I've ever experienced, quite honestly. And when we have these experiences, these powerful experiences, it's easy to leave feeling on this high. And then if you're anything like me, a few days later, that really starts to die off or real life starts to happen. And before I know it, my fear and my doubt comes creeping back in. And so whether you were there with us or not, even if you're just really feeling the impact of that day with us, I want you to know that the feelings of motivation and inspiration, encouragement from that day don't have to die. They don't have to completely leave. It takes some effort in order to keep those alive for ourselves, but it's absolutely possible. And this is really where community comes into the picture. Because most of the time for me, when I am by myself and thinking about my big dreams, thinking about my fear, that is when I start to doubt. But when I'm in community with women who are on the same path and women who can remind me that, yeah, it's going to feel scary. Yeah, you're going to probably be freaked out more often than not. It helps me feel like I'm not doing this alone. And you know that we believe we're not meant to do this alone. So I just wanted to, before we get into all the goods from this event, I just really want to remind you, whether you were there with us or not, that the feeling from this weekend can absolutely stay with you. It can fuel you all the way to September 2020 when we will all be together again. Well, I hope we don't have to wait that long to see each other, but the next big event will be next year at this time. So, my goodness, I just couldn't even believe. I remember Okay, it was at the Friday night kickoff party. We did the pajamas and Prosecco kickoff party. In case you were wondering if it was as fun as it sounds, it was. It was that fun and then some. It was just such a blast. And it was during that party, I got on the microphone and just kind of welcomed everyone. And you guys need to know this. I don't think I even realized how big this experience, this whole weekend was going to be, because when I asked people to raise their hands if they had to get on an airplane in order to be there, this was a room of, 75 women. And I would guess that over 50% of the room raised their hand. I met Emily from New York, who came by herself. She listens to the podcast. Hey, Emily. I met Michelle from Dallas. She came by herself, didn't know a soul, and met so many friends. And I have to give some love to our Portland girl gang, Sarah, Heidi, Renee. There were just some incredible women in that room. And I honestly had no idea that so many people came from out of state just to be there with us. And I think at that point I knew, okay, this weekend is going to be really, really special. And this girl gang is starting to go, well, it's already way beyond me. That happened a long time ago. But the word is starting to spread beyond our little community here in Phoenix, where I'll never forget the very first ever event that we did in 2017 was mainly people who were local. And I was shocked that they even knew to show up, because we had no marketing budget, no marketing plan. I think we posted it on social media a few times and 100 people showed up. So to see it go from that, this more intimate group of 100 people to over 300, and I kind of feel like we're just getting started, it has been surreal. But I'm just going to take it back to the point that I said at the beginning. It all started with an idea, and one that made me question everything in me, whether I was the one, whether I had what it took, whether I knew what the hell I was doing. But there was something in me that said, yeah, but what if? What if we put women together in a room and started having conversations about how we aren't meant to do this alone, and that those ideas that we feel inspired to create were given to us for a reason, and that those ideas aren't even about us. They're 100% about who we will serve. What if? What if we just tried? And so wherever you are listening to this today, wherever you physically are, or just wherever you're at in your own journey, I want to remind you the ideas that are on your heart are put there for a reason. And you just never know what can happen when you start to get out of your own way and keep getting out of your own way in order to make them happen. So I want to give you kind of my 3 big takeaways. After this episode is over, I really want to hear from you as well. I know we've asked this question on our Instagram. We'll definitely have this conversation in our private Facebook group. I definitely want to hear your takeaways. But here are mine. And I'm also going to share with you, even if you were there with us, I'm going to share some things that you may not even know, and just give you a little bit of an inside look from my perspective. So takeaway number 1, and this one gets me every year. It never, and I always need it. It never ceases to amaze me how much I forget that we are all the same. We are all on our own version of this same journey, and we all have fear. We all have doubt. We all have insecurities, especially if we're chasing ideas and dreams that are way bigger than us. So it's just a matter of, is this at the beginning of your journey where maybe you don't have as much evidence that, okay, it's going to feel scary, but that's a good sign? Or are you further along where now you're facing down bigger ideas that are forcing you to stretch in bigger ways than you ever have before? So maybe like this is kind of how I feel where I am. I have some evidence that when things feel scary, that's usually a sign that's exactly where I should go. But as the ideas, as the dream, as the vision gets bigger, the fear is also bigger. But now I'm equipped to handle it. So it always feels scary in proportion to the growth that I've gone through up until that point. But I don't know why I'm still surprised that I still get scared. because I think this is going to be the rest of life. I think at some point in the journey, I thought maybe I would feel like I have it together, but spoiler alert, I don't think that happens, and at least it has not happened to me. So that was my biggest takeaway, just that we are all the same. And I loved one of the best quotes from the day. People are still quoting it, from one of our keynote speakers, allllll. She said in such an eloquent way, only the way that Angie could, that she reminded us that even Beyonce poops. Even Beyonce is a real human, someone we probably all look up to and has had this amazing career. It was such a good reminder that anyone that you look up to right now, they are human. And they still have their own fear, their own doubt, their own insecurity. And so, if you ever forget, just tell yourself, hey, even Beyonce poops. But Angie had everyone do this amazing exercise that I wanted to give to all of you, or if you were there, just remind you of. And she had everyone list out their fear. So whatever that fear is, when you think about getting into action around your next big idea, what's the thing that shows up for you? And then right next to it, list out the evidence for why that is not true. Because so often our fears seem real to our mind, and we think we have all this evidence for why that's going to happen, or, the worst case scenario. But if you think about it, and if you're really looking for it, there's just as much evidence to the contrary. You might be downplaying that evidence, that maybe the fear is, okay, if I start that podcast or that blog, I'm going to get criticism, or no one's going to read it. Well, maybe then on the flip side, the evidence for why you absolutely should start that blog or do the thing that you're feeling called to do, because when you shared your story that one time, a friend told you that it made a huge difference for them. Sometimes we overlook the obvious evidence for why our fears aren't true, or why we absolutely are meant to make an impact, because we're looking in the wrong places. But it was such a good reminder that we always get to choose what we believe in. And I know that for myself, there's no one more committed to my own limitations and my own fears than I am. And so this was one of mine that I thought of, and this was true for me when I was preparing to go into this weekend. And I don't think a lot of people know, it's very easy to look at someone's life from the outside on social media and just think that they have it all together. But, we've talked about this many times. We're only seeing such a small glimpse of what's really going on for people. And for me, I almost feel like year 3, so this past event we just had, was kind of like my year 1. Going into Powerhouse Women year 2, I still had huge doubt and huge fear. So what it would have sounded like for me if I would have listed out my fear is, there are other women doing this, doing what I want to do, hosting events, and they're doing it way better than I could. Can you relate? Have you ever had that one? Yeah, that was a big one for me. I just didn't get why people wanted to keep showing up for something that I was doing, because there were so many other amazing things out there. And the evidence that I had that was to the contrary, the evidence for why I absolutely should keep going, is women just kept showing up. They kept showing up for the event. And it was after Powerhouse Women 2018, so last year's event, the second one, I really had to get honest with myself, and I really had to look at, was I going to listen to that fear that, okay, why do people even care? Who's going to listen to me? Or am I going to show up like the women in our community keep showing up? And so that's why for me, heading into year 3, yes, I still had some fear. I still had some what if, but for me, this was the first year that I really leaned in and gave it my all and didn't question whether or not I was meant to be doing this. And so those of you who were there year 1 and year 3, or maybe you've been with us all 3 years, you've probably noticed it was a huge shift. It's just a huge shift in the experience, but it took me a while to work up to that point. So if you're just coming into this story right now and you're just meeting me or just meeting Powerhouse Women, I want you to have that view that it's taken me 2 years to even get to the point where I was fully confident that this is what I'm meant to be doing. So that doesn't mean that we have to stop or wait to be ready. It just means that we are all the same, my takeaway, and that you just have to do it scared. And then one day you're going to wake up and people are going to say that like look like Beyonce on stage, and that's not ever a bad thing, right? So I feel like I'm still kind of stepping into that full potential and full power, but I'm getting closer, and that's a cool feeling. But I had to go through a few years of feeling like I had no idea what I was doing before I got to this point. So here's a little action step. I'm going to give you a little action step with every single one of these takeaways. And that action step is, what are your fears? What are the fears that are getting in your way, or the self-doubt? Name it. And then on the other side, so write it on a piece of paper, and then right next to it, I want you to write out and look for evidence for why that may not be true. So you're going to write your fear on the left side in a column, and then the evidence for why that may not be true on the right side. And I want you to share that with me. So post it on social media, tag Powerhouse Women, tag my personal Instagram, and show me that you did the work, because this could be a really, really powerful exercise for you. Okay, so takeaway number 2 is that we all are craving community and connection. And this is why, we are not meant to do this alone is way more than just our motto. It is a way of life. And so many of you shared incredibly powerful stories. One of them that is still playing over and over in my mind is, if you were there with us, our closing speaker was one of the women chosen as part of our My Powerhouse Moment speaker contest. And Mallory is her name. She's a dear friend of mine. And she shared the story of how 1 year ago, right before Powerhouse Women, she was in a really bad car accident. And this is a woman who has several businesses. She is a doctor. She is a physical therapist. She's a yoga instructor. She's up to so much. And all of a sudden, she went from doing everything herself to needing help with literally everything, including she could not drive, she couldn't go to the store, she couldn't get groceries for herself. And she shared just this incredible story of her journey to recover from that, which she's still not fully recovered. But here was the thing that stuck with me, and I think this is probably going to resonate with some of you as well. She said that doing things by herself, doing it all herself, had worked for her up to that point. And I think that's so true for many of us. The idea that collaboration could be more fun or easier sounds great, but we've had some success in life, and if we really look, that success has been fueled by doing it ourselves. I know I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of wanting to control things and wanting to, or just thinking it'll be easier. Okay, just give it to me. I'm going to do it myself. And that has worked up to a certain point. But I'm now just getting to the point where this vision is getting way bigger than me, and I can no longer do it justice if I do it by myself. So that was just really powerful, because I think that deep down, we all want to believe that collaboration and doing things together is possible. But I really had to look at, okay, maybe doing it myself has gotten me to this point, and that's great and that's fine. But it's going to take a little effort to break those deep-rooted patterns and allow my impact to grow exponentially by linking arms with other people with different skills. So I think this is just a point. The action step for you is just to really ask, how are you making the effort to connect with like-minded women? Even just opening up some of those conversations, going to events, putting yourself in the room with other women who are up to big things is a great way just to get a sense of how other people incorporate collaboration and just start to create that community for yourself, because we're all craving it. We all do need community, whether or not we think we do. Okay, so takeaway number 3 kind of ties into that. And it just, this is one that I just don't think is ever going away, because it's so alive and present when I'm in a room like the one I was in with all of you on Saturday. And that is that we aren't meant to do this alone. We're not meant to do business or life or anything by ourselves if we're fully playing full out and if we're chasing after an idea or goal that is bigger than us. And, when I think about even the journey for how we got up to the point of this event we just had, it was such a powerful event. There were so many people who came into my life that really had a hand in making sure that Saturday happened. And I'm talking as far back as 3 years ago when I met Dr. Laura Bush, who was on the podcast. You can find her episode, but she was the one that poured belief into this teeny tiny little idea I had never spoken out loud, thinking that, we needed to share more of the real stories, the ups and downs of what it looks like to build a business or go after a big dream. She was the one that gave me that push to write that book and get the message clear that then evolved into an event. There was Tessa, who was our event planner on the very first 2 events, and this woman was a spin instructor. I took her spin class, and I just loved her energy. This is what a creep I am. So I stalked her on social media like a normal person would, and she was the one who helped me bring the vision to life that very first year and even the second year. And she led me to people like Matiana and Kate, who are the creative team. All the beautiful stage design that you see, the photo backdrops, that tinsel. You guys, I don't do any of that. That is not my gifting. I'm terrible at it. You would laugh if you saw the stage that I would design by myself. It would probably have a chair and maybe a microphone. I don't even know if I would remember that. So there have been people along the way who've said, okay, I see your vision. Let me help you take it to the next level. There is, our photographer, Monica, and her whole team with Girl Squad Inc. I met her at another event. She was wearing sparkly gold shoes. I told her we had to be friends. The rest is history. And she has completely brought the event to life in a new way. And then just this last year, I started to feel really stretched. I started to feel like, okay, I'm going to need some help to manage this beast of an event. And I actually was praying about it, like a very specific prayer that I needed someone who knew the business of corporate events, big events, who knew things that I didn't, who could see things and challenges that I may not even know I needed to be prepared for. And then I'm not even kidding you, less than 2 weeks later, there was an email in my inbox, which I laugh about now, but I actually ignored the first one. I didn't answer her back, but she followed up. And this is such a powerful reminder. If you feel like you're supposed to be, working with someone, or if you feel like you can really support someone else's vision and you just feel that so strongly, don't be afraid to follow up, because I almost missed the chance to work with Carla and her partner Jackie with Creative Den. And I can't even put into words. I could do a whole podcast episode on just what an impact these women made on having the event run so smoothly, have it be a first-class experience for our attendees from start to finish, and I could not be more grateful. I could just go on, but it's such a reminder that for each of us, I think the action step here is get clear. Take some time and get clear about what you need. What is a pain point for you in getting your passion project, your business, your whatever it is you want to create, getting that launched or growing it to the next level? Where do you feel friction that maybe if you just lifted up your eyes and looked for someone who had complementary strengths, asked for referrals, and started to get clear about what you really need, you could find it, and your idea and your impact could grow exponentially beyond what you can do by yourself. So I want you to get clear not just about the roles that you really need to fill, but this is something that I'm a huge stickler on, is I'm even more clear about the attitude and the personality of the people that I want to work with, because anyone who touches my business and my brand is an extension of me. And one of the reasons I think that Powerhouse Women has grown so fast is because we are really crystal clear. Every single volunteer who helped out on Saturday was handpicked because they have the attitude of the kind of woman that I want surrounding my community. They have a servant heart. They are welcoming and positive. They create the space right along with me. So while you're doing this third action step of getting clear about what you need, also think about the kind of person that you really want to work with. So those are my 3 biggest takeaways. And, I think this is the impact of the day is really just going to be something that continues to unfold. especially as I watch all of you step into your next big ideas. And I want to give you a little present, especially those of you who listen to the podcast. I'll be honest, I had no idea that so many people came to the event because they heard the podcast first. That was really, really cool. So just a little token of gratitude because it just rocks my world. We had opened up pre-sale tickets. So basically, if you attended Powerhouse Women 2019, you had a chance to buy a discounted ticket for the 2020 event. Those tickets have now closed. However, you're part of like the secret society because you're a podcast listener. So if you're listening and thinking, oh my goodness, I need to be in that room next year, what you're going to want to do is go to powerhousewomen.co/event. Don't worry, all this is going to be linked for you in the show notes. And you're going to see a button there for Powerhouse Women 2020 tickets. And if you use the code podcast, it's going to open up access to those pre-sale ticket prices, which is actually even less than when we launch early bird ticket sales in probably January next year. So this is the only podcast episode I'm going to mention this on. So if you listened, I guess this is kind of like finding the golden ticket in the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. You want to use the link that I'll put in the show notes. I'll actually just direct link it so that you'll click and it'll open up those pre-sale ticket prices for 2020. And I always say the event literally begins when you register for it. Your transformation, your community, your girl gang, all of that begins when you register. So I'm already counting down until the next event. I don't know about you, but I can't wait to hear more. So plug into the Powerhouse Women community on Facebook. Tell us what your takeaways were. Tell us what you are putting into action from this episode. And until next time, just remember, you are not meant to do any of this alone.